This is the Barry Richards Show. WBSM On Demand.
Without further ado,
WBSM presents The Barry Richards Show. Streaming live on WBSM.com and the WBSM app. Call 508-996-0500. Text us using App Chat on the WBSM app. Now, The Barry Richards Show.
Welcome to the program, 16 minutes after 12 noon, Hall & Oates, and that is I Can't Go For That from the Private Eyes album from back in the day. And Variety is reporting today that, that Hall & Oates, Daryl Hall and John Oates, are officially Splitsville. The group is no more. Variety's Roy Trakin reports the two, who began singing and performing together more than 50 years ago over a mutual love of soul and doo-wop music, have split. The problem stemmed from Oates' attempt last year to sell his half of the duo's jointly owned company, Whole Oates Enterprises, which controls trademarks, personal name, and likeness rights, record royalty income, website, and social media assets, something he cannot do without Hall's consent. It hit me by surprise, Hall acknowledges, speaking from his home in the Bahamas. I don't know, man. All I can say is people change, and sometimes you don't really know someone like you thought you did. So, anyway, by the way, the Department of Justice, according to Fox News, plans to indict Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas today. And federal law enforcement raided Cuellar's home and office 2 years ago as part of an investigation into a group of U.S. businessmen and their ties to the country of Azerbaijan. The representative and his office agreed to cooperate with the investigations. Fox is reporting that Congressman Cuellar of Texas is scheduled to be indicted today. Toward the end of yesterday's program, had a call from one of our regulars, a senior, who said that a lot of the older guys in his senior living facility where he and his wife live are veterans and are voters as well, and he wanted some information about something that had come up so that he could share with them. And many of the folks that he lives with, many of the seniors, as you know, vote Democrat religiously. And so he wanted some information to be able to provide to them. And I promised him I would find the article and get it on the air today. I found it late yesterday afternoon, actually, just before we went off the air. And I was able to get the information out there. But just in case he didn't get a chance to hear it, Joe Pyers, who is running as a Republican for the seat being vacated by Strauss down in Mattapoisett, sent me the article, also a statement condemning this action. But the story that was originally printed out by New Bedford Guide earlier this week actually, says all 5 New Bedford state representatives, Tony Cabral, Christopher Hendricks, Christopher Markey, Paul Schmid, and William Strauss voted against an amendment that would give homeless veterans preference for housing over others, to include non-U.S. citizen migrants. If you live in the Fall River area, Representatives Alan Sylvia, Carol Fiola, and Pat Haddad also voted against this. It was an amendment that would give homeless veterans preference for housing over others, to include non-U.S. or illegal immigrants, essentially. Let's put it that way, but non-U.S. citizen migrants. The story says Massachusetts Democrats shut down several Republican amendments that would have prioritized Massachusetts residents over newly arrived migrants. The vote was on party lines, with the vast majority of Democrats voting against it and all Republicans voting for it. For 10-plus years, 4 of the New Bedford area state reps have blocked bills giving veterans preference in housing. Back in 2013, when Jeff Deal was still a member of the legislature, he offered an amendment requiring veterans to be given priority over illegal immigrants for public housing. Tony Cabral, Christopher Markey, Paul Schmidt, and William Strauss all voted against the amendment, even getting a vote on the floor. They opposed it even getting a vote on the floor. So congratulations to our delegation, Tony Cabral, Chris Hendricks, Chris Markey, Paul Schmid, Bill Strauss, and, of course, from Fall River, Alan Sylvia, Carol Fiola, and Pat Haddad, all voting against an amendment that would give priority in housing to Massachusetts residents, particularly veterans, over illegal immigrants. Because we know what their priorities are, right? We know where their priorities are. Have you heard any one of these troopers stand up and oppose Maura Healey's immigration resettlement plan here in Massachusetts? They voted to approve Maura Healey's taking $400 million from the quote-unquote savings account, the Christmas Club, as I refer to it, in order to further fund emergency shelters for illegal immigrants. They voted for a laughable 9-month cap on staying in these shelters, with extensions, as many as 2 9-month extensions for almost any reason. After that, they voted. Our entire delegation voted for all this. Not one of them, not Tony Cabral. You would expect him to anyway. Tony Cabral, Chris Hendricks, Chris Markey, Paul Schmidt, Bill Strauss, Alan Sylvia, Pat Haddad, Carol Fiola. Not one of them has stood up or raised a hand or spoken out against Maura Healey's resettlement program here in Massachusetts. None of them. Not one. They all support it. And, to this thing, shame on them. I don't know anything about Bill Strauss's background, or, for that matter, Chris Markey's background, or Chris Hendricks, but I do know for a fact that Alan Sylvia is a Marine, Paul Schmidt is a Marine, and these folks would vote against giving preference to veterans for housing. They would actually vote against giving preference to our veterans for housing. I mean, this is disgraceful. This is what we are up against. And, looking at this list, Tony Cabral's running unopposed, Hendricks running unopposed, Markey's running unopposed that I'm aware of anyway, Schmidt's not running for re-election, and Strauss not seeking re-election this year. Alan Sylvia is unopposed. Pat Haddad, I think, has some token opposition, and Carol Fiola is running unopposed. All these folks are running unopposed. So I thought it was important to share this with you. Things kind of get lost at times, but, with everything that's been happening on the campuses the last week, this kind of get buried. We did mention it once or twice, but really didn't get much in the way of conversation. But, I mean, this is disgusting, people. This is your delegation. These are the people that you can control whether they serve in office or not. And they vote illegal immigrant over veteran. Two of the groups that are least represented out there in terms of advocates or advocacy are veterans and certainly seniors. So we've talked about this before, $64 a day per illegal immigrant. Your Nana, your Meme, your Vavu, your Vavor, whatever one is the female. I think is it Vavor, right? I think it's the female. They're not getting $64 a day for food. No, they're lucky if they get a piece of crap in a container, and it's called Meals on Wheels. And maybe they'll get John Mitchell or Tony Cabral to deliver it to their door. Isn't that something, huh? What a special treat that is. And we talk about illegal immigrants getting free housing in hotels, $300 a night. Meme's not getting that. Free lawyers. Meme, hey, Meme, you getting a free lawyer? Getting free clothing? Getting re-educated? You getting any of this stuff that the illegals are getting? And now the members of our local delegation, Tony Cabral, Chris Hendricks, Chris Markey, Paul Schmidt, William Strauss, Alan Sylvia, Carol Fiola, Pat Haddad, all voting against giving preference to veterans for housing over illegal immigrants. 508-996-0500. We got a lot of folks on the line. We're going to get right to you, I promise you, in a couple of seconds here. I just wanted to mention the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants who came to the U.S. as minors and were protected from deportation under Obama-era executive order will be able to obtain health care through Obamacare under a new rule that is being publicized today by the Biden administration. Those who were protected via the 2012 Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, along with other illegal immigrants, are currently prohibited from accessing health care through the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. A rule announced today will end that prohibition. The administration says it predicts that the rule, which will go into effect just days before the election in 2024, will result in over 100,000 uninsured illegal immigrants accessing health insurance. DACA recipients would be allowed to apply for coverage through healthcare.gov and state-based marketplaces as soon as November 1st. $508-996-0500. Thanks for hanging on. You first on WBSM. Go ahead.
Hey, Barry. With people, it's already happening. Medi-Cal out in California insures any illegal and their children under the age of 18. So illegal kids who come into the country, into California, are already covered by Obamacare through Medi-Cal. So that's a lie right there. And the best part about this is they're knowingly going to run the Obamacare, the government health care system, into the ground by doing this. Because you and I both know they're already behind on costs. They're already they told people last January that they were going to start cutting services because the money coming in wasn't covering the money going out. So that's just more destruction by Biden. Quickly on our lovely state reps, I'm not stunned by this, okay? Yeah. Because these people have no shame and they don't care because it doesn't affect them. And I live in Fall River. I can tell you that Fiola and Silver are leeches. They're self-serving leeches. And the best part is they'll go into these senior citizen centers and these veteran homes, and they'll take photo ops with these people. And the nerve, they sit there with a smile on their face, but they got the knife in the back of the veteran while they're doing this. It's disgusting to me. I'm not surprised at this.
Alan Sylvia is a veteran. He's a Marine, and he's also a former police officer and state police officer. And I find it disgusting. And I got to tell you, I've spoken to people who have spoken to them. And here's the deal. If you are up in Boston, right, and everything is done behind closed doors up in Boston, and you are told how to vote, Alan Sylvia and Carol Fiola and Pat Haddad and Tony Cabral, none of these people, they don't vote by conviction. They vote by what they are told to vote or how they are told to vote. And if you don't vote, you lose your committee chairmanship, which is a big pay cut. And you essentially get your office taken away from you and you move down to the basement. So it's all controlled, is a mega majority run by the Democrats on Beacon Hill, and none of these people are allowed to think. They're not allowed to give any input. They are simply told, here's what you do. And they do it.
Well, here's my problem. I agree with you on that a lot. The Speaker of the House is the king of the court. Tommy Fennerman, DeMacy, the Bulger, they're all criminals. But what's funny is when they passed that bill to bump their pensions using the lockdown as the excuse, Silva and Fiola were co-sponsors on the bill.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just, I'm not shocked at this behavior. And you're right, Alan Silva should be ashamed of himself. You're a veteran and you're sticking a knife. He did an interview for the local radio station he used to work for here, and he was telling the reporter there that basically, well, next month we're going to pass a bill specifically for veterans. And I'm like laughing, like, when? Give us details, Alan. No, because you're not going to do that. You're just looking for an excuse.
Yeah, but Alan Sylvia's been saying that now for this same thing, as I mentioned, has been in the hopper since 2013 when Jeff Deal first introduced it as a member of the House. And Alan Sylvia keeps saying the same thing. Well, I voted against it, but we got another bill coming up next year. And it never happens.
Yeah, because it's a constant front with these people. They're all self-serving leeches, and that's how I view it. The problem in this state, we don't have proper recall laws in place. We don't have term limits in this state. That's what we need. And by the way, get rid of these salaries, these legislators. $20 an hour. You work minimum wage or whatever. And 10-1, most of these people who are there now, they won't even run for office, because the only reason to run for office, Barry, it's almost like nowadays the government has become a get-rich-quick scheme. Not just in Massachusetts, but in D.C. It's so easy to insider trading, or you take bribes from pharmaceutical companies or lobbyists. You get rich real fast, and that's what government's become now.
Hang on, my friend. Appreciate it. 508-996-0500. Thanks for hanging on. You're next in WBSM. Good afternoon.
Hey, Barry. What's going on?
Hey.
Hey. I have a tough time swallowing this because it doesn't make sense to me why they would. It's political suicide. So when I
who's going to? Well, wait a minute. How do you figure it's political suicide?
Well, voting. I think voting against veterans, if it was a standalone bill, is political suicide.
But that's so. As I just reported. Wait, hold on. Okay. As I just reported to you, Tony Cabral has no opponent. Okay, Chris Hendricks has no opponent. Chris Markey has no opponent. Strauss is not running for re-election. Schmid is not running for re-election. Alan Sylvia has no opponent. Carol Fiola has no opponent. So how is this political suicide?
I'm just saying it's a very bad take, right? So
well, yeah, you know that, and I know that because we have common sense.
I know. So you spoke on Chris Markey, and I know him personally, like his work that he's done on. There's a veteran house that used to be the old state police barracks in.
Well, all right. So then you know him.
Yes.
All right. So explain to me then why he voted against this amendment.
So what I think happened, and we see this happening all the time. We see good things put into really crappy bills, and then it's the good parts are used as political bullets to fire at your.
Well, wait a minute. What? No. This is an amendment. This is an amendment that was added to a piece of legislation. Okay, right. And the amendment gives preference to veterans over illegals and non-citizens in housing, and they voted no for it. So correct. Why?
So did they vote no specifically on an amendment or the entire bill?
It doesn't matter. They voted no on the amendment.
It absolutely does. No. I asked you if they voted no on the amendment or the bill.
They voted no on the amendment. They voted against the amendment coming onto the floor for discussion.
Okay. So there has to be a reason because
all right, yeah. So what is the reason? I don't know what the reason is. They voted against the amendment coming to the floor for discussion.
What I'm saying is there has to be a reason because I've seen this time and time again where these people write bills and they're really crappy bills.
Yeah, but hold on. What I just explained to you, this has nothing to do with the bill. They voted against the amendment going to the floor for discussion.
I completely understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is I know Chris Markey has worked for.
All right, but no. You're spinning, dude. You're not addressing what I'm saying. You are spinning. I just told you they voted against an amendment coming to the floor for discussion. Has nothing to do with what Chris Markey has done before. Has nothing to do with what the bill might have been. This was an amendment that was proposed that they voted against it even coming up on the floor for discussion.
So my question to you is, why can't you get them in on your show and answer it? Because there has to be a reason, a logical reason, because it doesn't make sense why
since 2013 that they have been voting against this amendment.
Right, there's two vets, and nobody asked them this question. Where's the media? Where are you? Where's WBSM? Nobody answered. They come on your shows. You don't ask them? It doesn't make sense.
I haven't had any of these people on my show in a long time.
They don't come on your show.
And you know what? Maybe I'll break a rule in one of my own rules, and I'll try. I don't chase people around to come on the program, but maybe I'll try to chase some of these people to see if I can find out exactly why they voted against putting this amendment on the floor for discussion. How much do you want to bet me right now? How many lunches do you want to bet me right now that not one single member of the delegation will come on and talk about this?
They probably won't, and they'll go on Chris's show like they always do. They go on Chris's show for a reason. Because
why? I don't know why that is, but I mean, I would ask them why you voted against this amendment, and I'm not sure they'd answer me. But it's not as though I haven't invited these people on the air before, and I always go, well, let's see, how about on February 30th? Well, come on. So I kind of stopped, but I don't chase people for interviews anyway. I don't even like having guests on the program. I'd rather talk to you guys, but I would like to know why they voted against bringing an amendment to the floor for debate. So if you want to bring it, if you want to debate it, and then you want to vote against it, okay, that's, for whatever reason. But why would you vote against even bringing it up for debate? What's wrong with having a discussion?
So following politics the way I have, I know that there are instances, at least at the D.C. level, where they'll change their vote at the end for technical reasons, for rules of the House kind of reasons. So this could be literally a technicality on why they voted no.
Since 2013?
I don't know. I have no idea, Barry.
Well, I don't have any idea either. And but I do know this, that if it was an earmark to a bill, I still don't see anything offensive, though. I don't see any reason why anybody would vote against an amendment that would give preference to veterans over illegal immigrants. I don't understand why anybody would vote against that. But this wasn't even a final vote. This was just a vote to bring the thing to the floor. And they voted against an amendment to bring it to the floor for discussion. Now, I've never been afraid of discussion personally, so I'm not quite sure why they would be. But I got to hold you there. I got to grab the next one. Thank you. 508-996-0500. You're up next on WBSM. Good afternoon.
Hi, Barry.
Hi.
I think it's a very simple explanation why they didn't vote for it, and why even the local delegation. You look at Schmidt. I've met him many times in Freetown, and like you said, the other Alan Sylvia. They could have easily voted for it, because the fact is the majority was voting against it. It wasn't going to be like a hung vote on those two. So they could have easily said, "Hey, my mind is with the veterans. I am a veteran, and veterans need help." But you have all these non-government organizations like Tunnel to Towers helping veterans and Wounded Warriors helping veterans. You can't get a single vote that doesn't cost you a damn thing. Alan, Schmidt pisses me off because he's a gentleman farmer. He always puts that out in front. He always puts out his military service, but he stands with the crowd. He doesn't stand alone. He doesn't stand out. He's my representative, so I can say that, and I've met him many times. But I think that the reason the vote in general went the way it did is because you have a majority of Democrats, and Democrats vote based on what? Not individuals. They vote based on groups or classes. And this is an equity vote. If there's a pile of money, if there's $20 billion, they're going to vote to equitably transfer that across the groups, however that is. So the veterans, whether they require or should have more preference because they've fought for the country and they've served, and all of the reasons we would want to stand up for them, because they stood up for us and the flag. That doesn't matter when you have Democrats voting on an equity basis, because they don't care. That doesn't matter. And the other thing is, they're not going to do anything that pushes one group out over another. So if you're pushing out migrants, even though to my feeling is they don't deserve anything because they didn't get anything when they hit Ellis Island. aside from a couple of square meals, and go find your family that sponsored you. I guess I totally agree with you, but I think it's an equity poll is the reason why the vote went away, you know?
Yeah. I just don't, I don't understand why you vote no on a question to bring an amendment to the floor for debate. Especially something like this. Now, the last caller maybe the bill sucked. I don't know whether the bill sucked or not. I don't know a lot about the bill, and I'm doing my research to try to find out more about it. But how do you vote no from 2013 for 11 years? You vote no against just bringing an amendment to the floor for debate. Now, if it's a lousy amendment, that's a great opportunity for you to tell the public why it's a lousy amendment. Why you've been voting against it for 11 years. To bring an amendment to the floor for debate, especially something that involves homeless veterans, come on. Bring it up. Let's talk about it.
Alan Sylvia and Paul Schmidt, let's ask them, because at least they could have voted. Like I said, it didn't cost them anything. They're in office. They're Schmidt's leaving. Sylvia's around with no contest. There was no skin off their bones to do that, but they are veterans, so why would they vote against themselves or vote against the veteran population? I'm sure that if we took care of all homeless veterans in the United States, that Americans would say, yeah, let's help the next group in line. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know, Barry. To me, it's because of equity thinking. There was no chance that this was going to pass through. So
yeah, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Let me just read to you from Newsweek. Okay, this is a piece from Newsweek, Newsweek magazine that was written 4 days ago, posted 4 days ago, and what it says here is all but two Massachusetts House Democrats voted against an amendment to provide statewide shelter priority to U.S. military veterans over migrants. All 25 Massachusetts State House Republicans were joined by two others across the aisle, meaning two Democrats, in voting for Amendment 698 as part of House Bill 4600. The amendment introduced by Republican Majority Leader Bradley Jones, titled Homeless Veterans Prioritization for Shelter Assistance. It failed on a 27 to 129 roll call vote. It's extremely disappointing that most Democrats were unwilling to support an amendment to prioritize eligibility for the state's Emergency Housing Assistance Program for honorably discharged homeless veterans, Jones told Newsweek. The vote occurred one day after a supplemental budget was sent to Democrat Governor Maura Healey, who in October said that her state lacks the space, services, and funding to safely expand beyond providing shelter for 7,500 families, of which that quota was nearly reached prior to Halloween amid a migrant surge to the Bay State. Massachusetts is spending about $75 million each month on state-run shelters, according to the Boston Globe, after Healey declared a state of emergency last summer. Democrat State Representative Gerald Cassidy, co-chair of the Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs, reportedly said that a veterans-related bill is being prepared for May and will address programs and benefit extension. This is not a veterans bill, Cassidy said, according to the State House News Service. This is basically a political ploy to bring the veterans in. And this bill that will be coming out is more in tune to what we're doing. Jones dismissed Cassidy's characterization of this amendment as a political ploy, saying instead that it is a recognition of the debt we owe to our nation's veterans and consistent with the many other veterans' preferences that exist in our current laws. No individual who has served their country with valor and dedication should ever be forced to sleep on the street with their family, he said. At a time when our emergency shelter system is being stretched beyond capacity and has a growing wait list for services, we need to set clear priorities to better manage the demand and eliminate the wait list. Ensuring the well-being of homeless veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country and our Commonwealth is not just a responsible policy decision, it is a moral imperative. The Bill Cassidy alluded or the Cassidy statement alluded to, I'm trying to read their writing here, will hopefully garner a better reception by Democrats, Jones added. In other words, what Jones is saying, he's playing to the crowd here, the Democrat crowd. A spokesperson for Democrat State House Speaker Ron Mariano told Newsweek that it is important to clarify that the emergency assistance program that was the focus of the amendment is a housing program serving families and pregnant women. But that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. It is. The housing program is, serving families and pregnant women, illegal families and pregnant women. In the bill, the House included consideration within a family unit, such as additional stay time in the program. Veterans not enrolled in services tailored to the veterans, says Mariano. Massachusetts has many specific programs for veterans, which is BBD. All right. Story goes on and on and on and on. But essentially, what they're saying is, well, this is a ploy. They're just trying to get. They're trying to get attention here because we're actually going to be bringing up a veterans bill at another time in May. So we shouldn't even be talking about this. But this was Maura Healey's bill that she just signed. The bill that she just signed this week. We talked about it yesterday with the 9-month extension. Oh, the 9-month stay, and then you get 2 9-month extensions after that, dipping into the quote-unquote savings account for, $400 and some odd million. And so this is it. This is the funding for that. And so what the Republican amendment would have done in terms of giving this shelter that they just voted to, the shelter program extension in the money, the $400 million from the savings account, it would have given veterans preference to any housing that was being given out. And the Republicans say, well, this is just a ploy. This is just a ploy on the part of the Republicans. Well, we're going to deal with the veterans later. The story referenced the State House News Service. And I have their version of the story in front of me here. And it says, House Democrats on Friday defeated a Republican bill to restrict migrants' access to the state's overflowing emergency family shelter system a day after the legislation shipped a supplemental budget to Governor Maura Healey that would impose new 9-month limit on shelter stays. With House Speaker Ron Mariano at the rostrum, lawmakers rejected amendments from Representative Paul Frost that aimed to install a 3-month residency requirement for family shelters and to prioritize Massachusetts residents on the shelter wait list. Okay, so they rejected that. Lawmakers rejected an amendment, emergency housing assistance requirements, on a 30 to 127 roll call vote. And then they rejected another amendment prioritizing Massachusetts residents on the wait list for emergency housing on a 27 to 131 roll call vote. I ask that the members consider this amendment so that a family that does need to get emergency shelter can get it, which would not have been a problem a year or so ago, especially those who have been here for a long period of time, Frost said. We should give priority to those who have been here longer and longtime residents of Massachusetts versus a family that just arrived and has been here for an hour. I think that's fair and reasonable. Democrats also thwarted an amendment from House Minority Leader Bradley Jones to prioritize shelter access for homeless veterans. Homeless veterans prioritization for shelter assistance was rejected on a 27 to 129 roll call vote. Representative Gerard Cassidy, co-chair of the Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs, previewed a veterans bill being readied for May that will address programs and benefits for veterans. So there you have it, 508-996-0500. Let me grab the break. We're going to come right back and get your calls next. Then. All right, welcome back to the program. It is 12:51. 508-996-0500 is the number. You're next in WBSM. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Barry. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, I have a problem with the main bill. What they're doing is they're putting a $4,000 price tag on the individual that's going to receive housing and give them a voucher. Now, for veterans that are struggling to find housing, even in public housing facilities, there's a struggle. You know, if you put a $4,000 price tag on their head and gave them a voucher, we could probably solve the homeless veterans problem. And it's been noted that Peabody Properties is one of the designated folks that are going to be benefiting from this. And it makes me angry. The idea at this point is I don't think the city council, whatever jurisdiction they have, should put people that are going to participate in this program with the state for the immigrant folks that they will no longer receive any tax incentive financing, that they will no longer get waivers on building permits or tax increment financing. If any jurisdiction that the city council has, when a proposal comes before them, they should slam the door on them. And that would be a notice to organizations like Peabody Properties that if you're going to participate like this ahead of veterans, we don't want you here.
Right.
And that's going to be something that's going to be happening throughout the state. So if you're Peabody and you go to a community that's accepting of this, then you're going to have hundreds of units where you get $4,000 a head. And the people that are going to be paying the rent have it done by voucher. You know, why can't they transfer that whole attitude toward the veteran population? That's what bothers me.
Well, you know, and again, there were two amendments to this thing that were rejected, and one of them would have just given preference to Massachusetts families in general first, and the other amendment that Brad Jones put up would give preference to homeless veterans, which I think should be right up there. And both of these amendments were shot down. And I mean, I don't see how you prioritize somebody as the representative, the quote that I read from the representative, who's been here an hour. How do you put that person ahead of a homeless veteran? It just absolutely is shocking to think that they would do that.
It's crazy. It's insane. I don't get it. I mean, hopefully somebody will be interviewing these representatives to see their argument. I understood the previous caller regarding, you know, first it's going to be these folks, then it's going to be the veterans and stuff like that, extension of their benefits and stuff like that. But you still have this in front of you. You know?
Well, this all comes though from the what is it, 1987 shelter law that we have in Massachusetts, which some could argue is a good thing, some could argue is a bad thing, but I think it's been taken out of context. And you know, I mean, certainly we have an obligation to take care of people in this state.
The intention was for women who were stay-at-home moms, where boyfriends or husbands left them, and they were left
or the victims of abuse, or sure, exactly.
And that was the intent.
Yeah,
to expand it to this arena, it's cuckoo. You know, I mean, just look at the ESG funding. You know, it got wiped out with this infiltration of folks, and that's one thing. But to respond to that dilemma with this, it just keeps enhancing it.
Yeah,
you know, and the American folk get left behind. Not good. Not a good idea.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. 508-996-0500. Last break, and we're coming right back after this. Welcome back to the program, 12:57 on a Friday afternoon, 508-996-0500. So here we are, just in a nutshell, what we've been talking about is that the members of the legislative delegation, the House delegation, and that includes all of them, everybody, Tony Cabral, Hendricks, Markey, Strauss, Schmid, I don't want to leave anybody out here, Carol Fiola, Alan Sylvia, and Pat Haddad out of Somerset. The entire bunch of them voted, according to Newsweek magazine and according to the State House News Service and according to New Bedford Guide. The headline in Newsweek magazine, Massachusetts kills plan to prioritize homeless veterans over migrants. And essentially what the story is we talked about this yesterday, the bill that Governor Maura Healey signed that allows for a 9-month cap for folks to stay in the emergency shelter. okay, the homeless folks to stay in the emergency shelter, 9-month cap. But everybody is eligible for 2 9-month extensions beyond that for just about any reason. The reason, I've got the list of reasons over here. I can go over them again later. So that would be a grand total of, 27 months at the very least. And the governor also was authorized by the House or by the legislature to take $400-some-odd million out of a quote-unquote savings account. Okay, the savings account. I was calling it the Christmas Club yesterday. And so the Republicans tried to introduce a couple of amendments, and one of the amendments would have given priority to Massachusetts families who are homeless